Thank you very much. And if I might just ask a couple of other questions before we come to the conclusion. Just to thank you, I suppose, just in terms of your submissions. And Dr. Lewis, again, you spoke very well there about just the early, researcher. I would have worked with a number of those in the research office in Galway, for example. And very important that we have those funding programmes to support. And the IRC was very good on this in terms of the Government of Ireland, scholarships and so on. And the IRC laureates, of course, have been another example, and the Surge, for example, the Starting Investigator, although it's all changed, these programmes, of course, change to mirror and reflect, I suppose, the needs, because like everything, what's very good about Ireland is that we're agile and flexible to be able to respond quickly. And that's what this agency needs to be able to do as well, where there's needs identified, that we're able to come back in and develop those funding programmes to support that. But I would very much support that around the early researcher and how we support them transition to to different stages. And again, not all researchers and not all academics, will become innovators, potentially. There'll be PIs with their research teams and their postdocs and their PhDs, and there could be a PhD or a postdoc in there across a multidisciplinary team that we'd love to see. We want to see multidisciplinary teams working across all of our universities and TUs and our third level structure. But I suppose that's very important. On HEA, Tim, again, thank you for highlighting Impact 2030, Ireland's research and innovation strategy. Again, all very important. These are all the basis for us to develop our policies going forward. And again, you referenced, I suppose, research integrity and open research, and again, the parity. Professor Carey, Daniel, again, thank you for highlighting the importance of, our history. For me, history, of course, but AHSS and, of course, the arts, humanities, and across that area. And Professor Nolan Phillip, again, the funding. Yes, we need more funding in research. I know that this is really the core of what we need to do per capita, and as a country that we need to see the importance of funding research and innovation at third level. And again, also, you spoke about many different things there in your opening statement. If I might, just the areas I want to ask about, Deirdre, if I might, the new government science advisor, that's, previously that was the chair, the Director General of Science Foundation Ireland, and previous to that it was a standalone role. This new government science advisor, can you give a little bit more detail just on that? And then just on the National Science Advice Forum, that National Science Advice Forum, who are they advising, I suppose, firstly? And then are they going to be an international, will there be a mix of that? So just if you wouldn't mind coming back in on that. And then I just have one other question then around innovation. So just if you want to briefly just answer those two, that would be okay, just around the science advisor and the...
Sure, and thank you. I suppose this was the subject of a public consultation with the community. The model that we've landed on and government has approved is a government science advisor who provides primarily science advice to government, but does so, I think, quite differently from previous iterations. One is that it's a much more proactive role, where they will go out and engage right across government to try and preempt or proactively identify the science advice that might be needed across a lot of policy areas in advance, and then work with this National Science Advice Committee as a way of sourcing that advice on an ongoing basis. There's also a part of the role which is developing the capacity of government departments in science advice so that they have their own capacity to seek it out and to receive it when they need it, and again preempt it. So it's a more proactive approach, and the idea behind the Science Advice Forum was to bring in the experts from different disciplines who they themselves then have their own networks that they can go to, so it's to give that broad connectivity.
And how often will they be meeting, or what, will there be a report every... what's the outputs?
The output, the government science advisor will agree an annual programme of work with government every year. So we'll work with the committee, work with government departments, that sort of proactive role, with an annual reporting back to government on plan for the next year and achievements on the past year.
And sorry for rushing, but just on the innovation, of course, it's Research and Innovation Ireland, I think is the name of this new agency, but we have a lot of innovation that happens within our universities. In fact, campus spin-outs, the technology transfer offices, the commercialisation of research, the actual time it takes to negotiate spin-outs from universities. How are we going to improve that in this new agency? And how are we going to rely on the expertise from the likes of Enterprise Ireland, again, we're the enterprise agency in this space. I mean, working with the Department of Enterprise, Trade and Employment, the systems that Enterprise Ireland are focusing on, and I know they have their new fund there, the Innovators Initiative, I mean, that's based on needs-led sort of systems, and that's a proven system. It's very important that we rely on evidence-based systems that are shown to have success, because we need to build an Indigenous industry, Irish startups, Irish-based startups, Irish. You know, we cannot just rely on foreign direct investment forever and a day coming into this country. We need to ensure that we have that. How are we going to streamline and work closely with the Department of Enterprise, Trade and Employment? How are we going to ensure that there's a focus of funding and not duplication when we're looking at working with the Department of Enterprise, Trade and Employment and the Department of Further and Higher Education, Research, Innovation and Science?
Sure. I think the first step on that, as it pertains to the legislation, is to get the roles, the respective roles, right in this sort of broader ecosystem. You know, this new research agency will have a particular role. At some point, there is a handover, I think, to Enterprise Ireland. There may be a grey area in the middle, and I think we have a lot of working out to do yet, in just where on that pipeline things best sit. I know the HEA have initiatives with the technological universities in this space. SFI have initiatives in this space as well. IRC have enterprise programs as well. I think it is a great opportunity to just maybe stand back from all of it and just see where it sits in.
But the output here, the success is going to have to be, how many spin-outs do we get? How long does it take to get contracts done in universities? And, you know, are there supports there within research offices? I've worked within the research office in Galway, and I know that capacity within universities, how are we going to ensure that this department and the Department over Enterprise are going to be working together to ensure that we're actually getting success around innovation? Because I think there is areas there that we could focus on. So I suppose, sorry, I don't want to cut into your times, and what I will do is I'll allow each of you a minute to come in, sorry, and I know, sorry, Professor Kerry, you might want to come in, but I might just give a minute to each, because I know we're closing at half, and I promise that I just want to thank you for your time as well today on the committee. So if I might allow, and I might start with maybe Professor Nolan and just work that way across, and that you would each maybe just have a minute to highlight. It would be lovely to see in 4 years' time what is the vision of success, wouldn't it, for this Research and Innovation Ireland agency? But thank you.
Well, yes, so that's the interview question, isn't it? So I think a high-functioning agency that government and the system has confidence to invest at a higher level through, which is inclusive of the full range of disciplines, has a large investment in fundamental research, is pursuing some priority research missions with separate funding that it's won from government, and that you can see the benefits of that primarily in the really talented people that are going through those programs and then going to work within our society, and secondarily in terms of real impact, as we say, on how enterprise and society functions. And then the one thing that I'll add to that is that you really should see very high levels of partnership between this new agency and the HEA in terms of its impact in the higher education sector, and this new agency and Enterprise Ireland and IDA. So I think the response to the question you're raising there is about partnership rather than territorial division as to who does what.
Communication.
Yeah.
Communication and the best use of funding, I suppose, value for money. Sorry, Professor Kerry.
Make a few quick points. I would like to see Ireland to be really a destination of choice, as I mentioned before. I think that does require new programs, but also an uplift in funding. To see robust disciplines which are secure, but also transdisciplinary collaboration. To see greater impact and investment, and also more secure research careers. Those are themes that have come up today. Just briefly to resume some points that I made before, obviously a commitment to basic fundamental research. I think there is a very important role for government here, because it can take risk. It can say, what are the blue skies? Where do you want to go with this? We can't expect industry and enterprise to do that on all occasions for understandable reasons. The board, to put it simply, competencies are key, so we'd like to elaborate, see those elaborated, and to see all areas and active researchers represented. And then finally, my third point had been about AHSS, which there's been so much social change in Ireland, social and demographic change. We need to understand, interpret, engage with these phenomena. If we look back over a short period of marriage equality, of the repeal of the 8th, of migration, of disinformation, all of these key social issues, we have to have a very well-equipped body of expertise and research going on in the country to engage with these questions. COVID-19 has demonstrated that, I think, very amply. I think we could also see, to come back to the question about missions, really HSS-led missions as well. I think we should be open to these possibilities and to see really where the intellectual imagination lies.
Thank you very much. Mr. Conlon.
Thanks, Chair. You made a really interesting point actually about the knowledge transfer structures. We work extremely closely with Knowledge Transfer Ireland, and can I compliment them on their professionalism and the value they've brought to the system. It's a journey that we're on. I think we need to look at how we can streamline those processes a bit more. It's really important to get it right, because you're talking about immense value coming from the higher education and research system, and commercialising that value in a way. So that has to be done in a very careful and structured way. But it does take time. It's tricky. So absolutely, there's an opportunity there in terms of this agency. I think the real value here in the establishment of a competitive funder for research is the benefit of scale from bringing together the two former agencies into something bigger and better, particularly for example, in the knowledge transfer space. The opportunities around about diversity, as you mentioned, Kerr, the piece around about the system's ability to respond quickly. That goes to the earlier conversation about academic freedom, for example. People who are free to explore, to risk, to be innovative, are the ones who actually will solve some of those challenges and problems that are coming at us, and we need to make sure that there's space in the system for that. The conversation around about research assessment, as Deirdre mentioned, is coming forward. Deputy Clerk asked earlier on around about that, about the TUs. They are extremely able and extremely capable of investing time, energy, opportunity in regions for national benefit, but they need to be empowered to do so, and we're very much working towards that. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. And Dr. Lillis, thank you.
Thank you very much. I suppose 5 years' time, if we had a highly collaborative agency that is adding clear value to the system, I think, but also is kind of a fulcrum for the entire system, that it's the place to go and get something done in the RNI system, but also demonstrating clear impact, I think, to citizens, to government, to researchers, and I think just that lofty ambition of being the best place in the world to do research and be a researcher, Thank you.
I think we're well on our way. Thank you very much to all of our witnesses that came in today. It is an exciting time, I know that, and I'm really looking forward to it. So thank you again, and here's to Research and Innovation Ireland. Thank you very much for your time.